Elon Musk is often seen as a symbol of ambition, intelligence, and futuristic thinking. To the public, he represents innovation, discipline, and success on a massive scale. In recent years, he has also spoken about traditional family values and the importance of having children, which has shaped a certain image of him as a family-focused man. However, behind this public persona lies a far more complicated personal story, especially when it comes to his first marriage to Justine Musk. From the outside, their relationship looked like a perfect example of love growing alongside success. They were young, intelligent, and full of dreams. Together, they built a family and shared a life surrounded by wealth, opportunity, and global attention. But what many people did not see was the emotional distance that slowly grew between them. Justine later described feeling invisible, unheard, and emotionally alone, even while living in luxury. Although they had 5 children together and shared years of history, something essential was missing from their marriage. She held on for years, believing that things would improve, hoping that love and understanding would eventually return. Instead, the gap between them grew wider. One moment in particular forced Justine to confront a painful truth about her marriage and herself. That moment did not come from fame, money, or public pressure, but from a deep personal realization that changed everything. It was the point where she understood that staying meant losing herself. This realization shocked the world when their marriage finally ended, leaving many to wonder how such a seemingly strong relationship could fall apart. The truth is that the story of Elon and Justine Musk is not just about wealth and ambition. It is about emotional needs, power and balance, and the quiet damage that happens when one partner's inner world is ignored for too long. Before Elon Musk became one of the richest and most talked about men in the world, he was simply a driven student with big ideas and endless determination. His story with Justine began in the early 1990s at Queen's University in Ontario, Canada. Justine was a creative, independent woman with strong opinions and a deep love for writing. Elon, on the other hand, was intensely focused on logic, efficiency, and future success. From the moment he noticed her, Elon was deeply interested. His approach was unusual and persistent. When Justine first met him, she barely remembered the encounter, but Elon never forgot. He invited her out for ice cream, and when she declined, he showed up later with 2 melting cones, determined not to waste opportunity. The moment was awkward but sincere, and it left an impression. Even when life took them in different directions after graduation, Elon never fully let go. Justine moved to Japan to teach English, while Elon went to Silicon Valley, living with roommates and working nonstop to build his first company, Zip2. Despite the distance, they stayed in contact. Their connection slowly grew stronger, and when Elon finally reached out again, Justine agreed to give their relationship another chance. By then, Elon's career was taking off, and his focus on work was already intense. Still, Justine believed in him and his vision. She admired his ambition and intelligence, and he admired her creativity and strength. Their differences seemed exciting rather than problematic at the time. They believed they balanced each other. As Elon's success increased, so did the pressure around them. Yet in those early years, love and hope overshadowed any warning signs. Justine believed they were building a future together, one where both partners could grow and thrive. She did not yet realize that Elon's way of loving was deeply tied to control, structure, and performance, while she needed emotional connection and mutual understanding. These differences, small at first, would later become a foundation of their greatest struggles. Elon and Justine married in January 2000, just as his career was beginning to explode. Zip2 was sold for a massive profit, instantly changing their lifestyle. They moved into luxury homes, flew private planes, and enjoyed a level of comfort most people can only imagine. To outsiders, their life looked perfect. But early in the marriage, signs of imbalance began to appear. Before their wedding, Elon introduced Justine to a financial agreement, claiming it was a formality requested by his company's board, not a prenuptial contract. Trusting him completely, Justine signed it without hesitation. She believed divorce was not even a possibility. At their wedding reception, Elon made a comment that would later haunt her. He told her that he was the alpha in the relationship. At the time, she laughed it off as a joke. Over the years, however, It became clear that he meant it seriously. Decisions were made on his terms, and Justine often felt like her voice did not matter. As Elon's ventures grew, his focus shifted almost entirely to work. His mindset, shaped by competition and efficiency, extended into his personal life. When conflict arose, he treated them like problems to be solved quickly, not emotions to be explored. Justine, who valued communication and emotional depth, found herself increasingly frustrated. She felt more like an employee than a partner. One moment captured this imbalance clearly when Elon told her that if she were his employee, he would have fired her. That statement revealed how differently they viewed marriage. To Elon, structure and results came first. To Justine, love and empathy were essential. As their lives became more demanding, the emotional distance between them grew. What once felt like excitement slowly turned into loneliness. Even within a house full of people in 2002, Elon and Justine experienced a devastating loss that forever changed their relationship. Their first child, Nevada Alexander Musk, died suddenly at just 10 weeks old from sudden infant death syndrome. The pain was unimaginable. For Justine, grief became overwhelming. She needed to talk, cry, and process the loss. Elon, however, reacted very differently. He shut down emotionally and refused to discuss the tragedy. To him, emotions were distractions that interfered with progress. Instead of grieving together, they moved forward in silence. Just 2 months later, they began IVF treatments to have more children. Over the next few years, they welcomed twins and triplets, eventually raising 5 children together. While their family grew, the emotional gap did not close. Justine felt that her pain had never been acknowledged. She was expected to continue functioning, managing the household and children while Elon focused on building Tesla and SpaceX. Their home became less of a family space and more like a workplace. Despite their wealth and public success, Justine felt isolated. She was surrounded by luxury but lacked emotional support. The grief she never fully processed stayed with her, quietly shaping her sense of self and her marriage. This period marked a turning point. The loss of their child revealed how differently they handled pain and connection. For Justine, it showed that she could not rely on Elon emotionally when she needed him most. That realization planted the seeds of doubt that would later grow into certainty. As the years passed, Justine increasingly felt like she was losing herself. Elon's world was structured around performance, deadlines, and high expectations. He wanted a partner who fit smoothly into that system. Justine, however, wanted to be seen as an equal, not an accessory. She longed for emotional intimacy, respect, and shared decision-making. Instead, she felt pushed into a role that did not reflect who she truly was. She changed her appearance, her behavior, and even her expectations to meet Elon's preferences. Despite these efforts, she still felt unfulfilled. Arguments became more frequent, and Elon was often critical rather than understanding. When Justine tried to express her needs, she felt dismissed. Her writing, once encouraged, became a low priority in his eyes. The imbalance in their marriage became impossible to ignore. Elon's success continued to rise, while Justine felt increasingly small. The lifestyle that once felt exciting now felt empty. She realized that she was living someone else's life, not her own. This growing sense of invisibility took a heavy emotional toll. She was surrounded by people, but felt deeply alone. The marriage no longer felt like a partnership. It felt like survival. These years of quiet suffering set the stage for the moment when everything finally changed. The final turning point came in the spring of 2008. Justine was involved in a car accident, and in that moment of fear and vulnerability, a powerful realization struck her. Her first thought was not about her own safety, but about how Elon would react. She understood then that she was no longer his wife in an emotional sense. She felt like a trophy, someone who existed to fit into his world rather than share it. This realization was devastating, but also clarifying. She asked for counseling, hoping they could reconnect. Elon agreed, but quickly grew impatient. After only a few sessions, he gave her an ultimatum: fix the marriage immediately or divorce. The next day, he filed for divorce. Soon after, Justine received a text message informing her that Elon was engaged to another woman. The message was short and emotionless. That moment ended any remaining illusion she had about their marriage. The divorce process revealed the consequences of the agreement she had signed years earlier. She had given up many of her marital rights, including claims to shared assets. Although her legal team challenged the agreement, the court ruled in Elon's favor. Despite the shock and disappointment, Justine also felt a sense of relief. For the first time in years, she felt free. After the divorce, Justine faced a choice. She could let the experience define her as a victim, or she could rebuild her life on her own terms. She chose the second path. She cut her hair, embraced her individuality, and returned to writing with renewed purpose. Through her novels and essays, she explored themes of identity, power, and resilience. She also began speaking openly about her experiences, becoming an advocate for women in high-profile marriages. She emphasized the importance of maintaining a sense of self, regardless of a partner's status or success. Over time, she worked through her anger and disappointment. She acknowledged her own role in believing in a fairy tale version of marriage that did not match reality. While she remained distant from Elon, communicating mainly through assistants regarding their children, she did not regret their relationship entirely. It gave her valuable lessons and shaped her into a stronger person. Her story became one of reinvention rather than defeat. After his marriage to Justine ended, Elon's later relationships followed a familiar pattern. They often began with intense passion and grand gestures, but ended in emotional distance and separation. His marriages and relationships with other women showed similar dynamics: strong beginnings, high expectations, and eventual detachment. These patterns suggested that the issues in his marriage to Justine were not isolated incidents, but part of a larger behavioral cycle. His work always came first, and emotional availability remained limited. While each relationship was different, the underlying challenges stayed the same. This repetition highlighted how difficult it was for Elon to balance personal connection with his demanding ambitions. His relationships became another area where efficiency and control often outweighed emotional presence. Looking back, it becomes clear that the failure of Elon and Justine's marriage was not caused by a single event. It was a result of years of emotional neglect, power imbalance, and unmet needs. They loved each other, but they wanted very different things from life and from a partner. Elon valued progress, structure, and results. Justine valued connection, creativity, and emotional honesty. Neither was wrong, but they were deeply incompatible. Without mutual understanding and compromise, the relationship slowly broke down. The tragedy they experienced only exposed what was already fragile. In the end, the marriage failed because neither could become what the other truly needed. The story of Elon and Justine Musk is not just about fame or divorce. It is a reminder that success cannot replace emotional connection, wealth cannot fix loneliness, and ambition cannot heal emotional wounds. Justine's journey shows the importance of self-worth and identity. Her decision to leave was not sudden or impulsive. It was a result of years of quiet realization. By walking away, she chose herself. Her story continues to resonate because it speaks to anyone who has ever felt invisible in a relationship. It is a story of loss, but also of growth, truth, and reclaiming one's voice. One of the most overlooked parts of Elon Musk and Justine Musk's story is the quiet emotional cost that comes with extreme ambition. From the outside, ambition is often praised as a positive trait. It brings success, wealth, and recognition. But inside a marriage, unchecked ambition can slowly replace empathy, patience, and emotional presence. Elon's life was built around solving big problems, meeting impossible deadlines, and pushing himself beyond human limits. This mindset helped him build companies that changed the world, but it also shaped how he handled personal relationships. Emotional conversations did not fit easily into his way of thinking. Feelings could not be measured, optimized, or solved quickly, so they were often avoided. For Justine, this created a painful imbalance. She was married to a man who could plan missions to space, but struggled to sit with her pain, fear, or sadness. Over time, this emotional gap became exhausting. She found herself constantly adapting, lowering her expectations, and telling herself that love meant sacrifice. But sacrifice without emotional return slowly turns into self-erasure. Justine began to feel that her role was to support Elon's mission, not to live her own life fully. Her needs were always secondary to deadlines, launches, and business crises. Even moments that should have brought them closer, like the birth of their children, became reminders of how alone she felt emotionally. This is an experience many people can relate to, even outside celebrity marriages. When one partner's dreams dominate everything, the other partner often disappears quietly. There are no dramatic fights at first, no clear breaking point. Instead, there's a slow fading of connection. Conversations become shorter. Shared moments become rare. Emotional support turns into emotional distance. Justine's story highlights how dangerous it can be to ignore these small changes. She did not wake up one day and decide to leave. She stayed for years, believing that love meant patience and endurance. But eventually, she understood that love should not require losing yourself. The emotional cost of staying became higher than the fear of leaving. Her experience shows that ambition, when not balanced with empathy, can slowly destroy even the strongest relationships. It is not success itself that causes damage, but the absence of emotional care along the way. In the end, Justine's decision was not about money, fame, or even betrayal. It was about survival. She chose to protect her identity, her emotional health, and her sense of self. Her story serves as a powerful reminder that behind every great success story, there are human relationships that require attention, understanding, and care. Without those, even the most impressive achievements can feel painfully empty. Justine Musk's story continues to resonate with millions of people because it reflects a reality that many experience but rarely talk about openly. Her marriage to one of the most powerful and successful men in the world did not fail because of a lack of money or opportunity. It failed because of emotional imbalance, unspoken expectations, and the slow erosion of personal identity. Many viewers see themselves in Justine's journey, not because they are married to billionaires, but because they have felt unseen or undervalued in relationships. Her experience highlights how easy it is to lose yourself when you are constantly adjusting to meet someone else's needs. In her marriage, Justine often felt that love was conditional, based on how well she fit into Elon's world. This is something many people recognize in their own lives, whether in romantic relationships, family dynamics, or even careers. Over time, this constant self-adjustment can lead to emotional exhaustion. Justine's story also challenges the idea that success guarantees happiness. From the outside, her life looked ideal: wealth, beautiful homes, and global status. But inside, she struggled with loneliness and emotional neglect. This contrast makes her story powerful because it breaks the illusion that external success can replace inner fulfillment. Her decision to leave was not about anger or revenge. It was about reclaiming her voice. She realized that staying silent was costing her more than leaving ever could. Another reason her story resonates is because of how openly she later spoke about her mistakes. She did not place all the blame on Elon. She acknowledged that she ignored warning signs and believed in a version of marriage that did not match reality. This honesty makes her story feel human rather than dramatic. It shows growth rather than bitterness. People respect that kind of reflection. Justine's journey also speaks to women who feel pressure to support powerful partners at the cost of their own dreams. Her experience reminds them that partnerships should not require self-sacrifice to the point of invisibility. Love should allow both people to grow, not just one. Her story is not about blaming ambition or success. It is about balance. When ambition becomes more important than emotional connection, relationships suffer. By sharing her experience, Justine gave language to a pain many people feel but struggle to explain. That is why her story continues to be discussed, shared, and remembered. It is not a celebrity scandal. It is a human story about boundaries, identity, and the courage it takes to walk away from a life that looks perfect but feels empty inside. One of the most important lessons from Elon and Justine Musk's marriage is how power can quietly change the balance in a relationship. Power does not always come from control or cruelty. Sometimes it comes from success, money, influence, and the ability to shape the world. As Elon's power grew, so did the gap between his public importance and Justine's private reality. In many ways, she lived in the shadow of a man whose ideas affected millions of people, yet her own emotional needs felt small and inconvenient in comparison. This kind of imbalance is difficult to notice at first. It often begins with admiration. Justine admired Elon's focus, intelligence, and drive. She believed in his mission and wanted to support him. Over time, however, admiration turned into silence. Her opinions mattered less. Her feelings were postponed. Her needs were expected to wait. This is how emotional loneliness begins. Even when two people share the same home, emotional loneliness is especially painful because it is invisible. Outsiders see comfort, luxury, and success, while the person living inside the relationship feels isolated and unheard. Justine often described feeling alone even when Elon was physically present. His mind was always elsewhere, focused on future problems, business risks, and global goals. Emotional connection requires attention, patience, and vulnerability, qualities that do not fit easily into a high-pressure, performance-driven mindset. As Elon's responsibilities increased, his emotional availability decreased. Justine learned to stop asking for comfort because she expected disappointment. This quiet withdrawal is common in many relationships where one partner holds more power. The less powerful partner adapts, adjusts, and shrinks to avoid conflict. Over time, they may lose touch with who they once were. Justine changed her appearance, her behavior, and her expectations to fit into Elon's world. Yet the more she changed, the more invisible she felt. This is a cruel paradox of power imbalance. The partner who sacrifices the most often receives the least emotional return. The loneliness becomes deeper because it feels undeserved. Justine had done everything right. She was loyal, supportive, and patient. Still, she felt replaceable. That realization is deeply painful. Feeling replaceable means realizing that your presence is optional, not essential. For Justine, this understanding did not come from a single argument or betrayal. It came slowly, through years of emotional neglect. When she finally recognized it, the truth was impossible to ignore. She was not failing as a wife. The relationship itself was failing to meet her basic emotional needs. This realization freed her from guilt. Leaving was no longer an act of selfishness. It was an act of self-respect. Her story shows that power, when unbalanced, can turn love into obligation and partnership into performance. Emotional loneliness does not disappear with wealth or status. In fact, it can grow stronger when the world constantly tells you how lucky you are. Justine's journey reminds us that emotional connection is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Without it, even the most powerful lives can feel deeply empty. One of the hardest decisions anyone can make is choosing self-respect over comfort, especially when comfort comes with security, wealth, and social status. For Justine Musk, walking away from her marriage did not simply mean leaving a relationship. It meant stepping away from a life that many people would consider ideal. She had financial security, access to elite social circles, and the title of being married to one of the most influential men in the world. Yet none of these things could fill the emotional emptiness she felt every day. Staying would have been easier in many ways. She could have continued living in luxury, raising her children, and presenting a united front to the world. But doing so would have required her to continue silencing her own needs and accepting a role that no longer reflected who she was. Self-respect often demands difficult sacrifices. It requires the courage to admit that something is wrong, even when others see nothing but success. Justine's choice challenges the belief that comfort should always be prioritized over emotional well-being. Many people remain in unhappy relationships because leaving feels too risky. They fear financial instability, public judgment, or starting over. Justine faced all of these fears, along with the added pressure of public scrutiny. Every aspect of her divorce became a topic of discussion, analysis, and speculation. Despite this, she chose to leave because staying would have meant continuing to disappear. Her decision shows that emotional freedom is worth more than material security. It also highlights how self-respect is built through action, not words. Justine did not suddenly become confident or fearless. She felt shock, pain, and uncertainty, but she acted anyway. She accepted the consequences of her earlier decisions, including the financial agreement she had signed. Instead of fighting endlessly over what she lost, she focused on what she could rebuild. Starting over meant redefining her identity outside of marriage. It meant accepting that she would no longer be protected by Elon's status or wealth. This was frightening, but it was also empowering. For the first time in years, Her choices were her own. She could write, speak, and live without asking for permission or approval. This shift from dependence to independence is a central theme in her story. It shows that true security does not come from money or status, but from knowing who you are and honoring your values. Justine's experience encourages others to ask difficult questions about their own lives. Are they staying in situations that feel safe but emotionally damaging? Are they sacrificing too much of themselves to maintain comfort? Her story does not suggest that everyone should leave their relationships. Instead, it emphasizes the importance of balance, mutual respect, and emotional presence. When those elements disappear, comfort alone is not enough. Choosing self-respect is rarely easy, but it is often necessary for long-term emotional health. Justine's decision serves as a powerful reminder that a life that looks perfect on the outside can still be deeply unlivable on the inside. At its core, the story of Elon and Justine Musk is not really about fame, money, or divorce. It is about love, identity, and the emotional needs that often go unmet in relationships where power and ambition dominate. Many people enter relationships believing that love alone is enough to overcome differences. In the beginning, attraction, admiration, and shared dreams can hide deeper incompatibilities. This was true for Elon and Justine. They loved each other, but they needed very different things from a partner. Elon needed structure, efficiency, and control to feel secure. Justine needed emotional connection, creative freedom, and mutual understanding. These needs were not wrong, but they were rarely acknowledged or balanced. Over time, love without emotional care becomes fragile. It cannot survive on intention alone. Emotional needs are not luxuries. They are basic requirements for a healthy partnership. When one person's needs are consistently ignored, resentment and loneliness grow. Justine's experience highlights how easily people can confuse endurance with love. She stayed for years, believing that patience and sacrifice were signs of commitment. Eventually, she realized that love should not require constant self-denial. Identity is another central lesson in her story. Relationships should allow both people to grow, not force one person to shrink. When Justine began to lose her sense of self, the marriage stopped being a place of support and became a place of confinement. This loss of identity is often gradual and difficult to recognize. It happens through small compromises, unspoken frustrations, and repeated silence. By the time it becomes clear, the emotional damage is already deep. Justine's story encourages people to pay attention to these early signs. Emotional neglect does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like being consistently unheard, dismissed, or postponed. Her journey also reminds us that leaving a relationship does not mean failure. In many cases, it is an act of honesty and courage. Choosing to walk away can be a way of honoring both yourself and the truth of the relationship. Not all love stories are meant to last forever, and that does not make them meaningless. They can still teach valuable lessons about boundaries, communication, and self-worth. Elon and Justine's marriage ended, but its impact continues to shape how people talk about relationships, power, and emotional balance. Their story invites viewers and readers to reflect on their own lives. Are they being emotionally present with the people they love? Are they honoring their own needs as well as their partners? These questions matter more than any headline or public image. In the end, the deeper lesson is simple but powerful. Love should not require losing yourself. Ambition should not replace empathy. And success, no matter how great, cannot compensate for the absence of genuine emotional connection. The story of Elon and Justine Musk also offers an important lesson about modern relationships and the expectations people place on them today. In a world driven by achievement, speed, and constant productivity, emotional connection often takes a backseat. Many people are taught, directly or indirectly, that success should come first and that personal relationships will somehow adjust on their own. This belief can be especially strong in high-pressure careers, where long hours and intense focus are seen as necessary sacrifices. Elon's life reflects this mindset clearly. His work demanded extreme dedication, and he believed that those closest to him would naturally adapt to that reality. For Justine, however, adaptation slowly turned into self-neglect. This dynamic is not unique to famous or wealthy couples. Many ordinary relationships suffer from the same imbalance, where one partner's goals dominate the relationship, while the other partner quietly absorbs the emotional cost. Modern culture often celebrates hustle and ambition, but rarely talks about the emotional labor required to maintain healthy relationships alongside those goals. Justine's experience shows what happens when that balance is ignored for too long. Another important lesson from their story is how unclear expectations can damage a relationship. Elon and Justine entered marriage with very different ideas of what partnership meant. Elon seemed to expect loyalty, flexibility, and support without emotional negotiation. Justine expected mutual growth, emotional presence, and shared power. Neither fully expressed these expectations early enough, and over time, misunderstandings turned into resentment. Many couples face similar problems because they assume love means shared understanding without constant communication. In reality, healthy relationships require ongoing dialogue about needs, boundaries, and change. Justine's story also highlights the pressure to appear successful from the outside. When a relationship looks perfect to others, it becomes harder to admit that something is wrong. There's fear of judgment, failure, and disappointment. Justine lived in a world where leaving meant public scrutiny and misunderstanding. Yet she chose honesty over appearance. Her decision encourages others to question whether they are staying in situations simply because they look good to others.